The moment Sergeant Harlan Webb ripped the name tag from Private Elena Vasquez's uniform, the courtyard fell so quiet you could hear the dust settle. No one moved. No one breathed. 32 soldiers stood in perfect formation, eyes forward, hearts hammering, because every one of them had seen that look on his face before, and every one of them knew what it meant. Elena didn't flinch. That was the part no one expected. She was 23 years old, barely 8 months into her service, and she had spent most of those months quietly proving people wrong. She wasn't the biggest soldier on the base. She wasn't the loudest. But there was something in the set of her jaw, something that said, "I have survived harder things than you." And it held, even now, even as Sergeant Webb held her name tag in his fist like a verdict. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. It had begun 3 days earlier, with a decision no one else was brave enough to make. The base had been running drills in brutal summer heat, 41 degrees, no cloud cover, no mercy. Private Marcus Okafor had collapsed on the second mile. Not unusual in those conditions. What was unusual was what happened next. Elena broke formation. She knelt beside him, called out for a medic, and refused to move until one came. Protocol said keep running. Protocol said a soldier who falls is a soldier who must find their own way back up. Elena chose Marcus over protocol, and Sergeant Webb had watched every second of it. He was not a cruel man. That was the complicated truth. He was a man built from years of hard rules that had, once or twice, saved lives. He believed in the structure with the kind of faith some people reserve for God. And when Elena broke that structure, something in him cracked along with it, not in grief, but in fury. So on the morning of the third day, he called her out in front of everyone. The courtyard baked in silence. Elena stood at attention, her uniform pressed, her chin raised. Sergeant Webb walked toward her slowly, the kind of slow that meant something. And when he reached her, he looked at her the way a judge looks at a verdict he's already written. His fingers found the small rectangular tag above her breast pocket, and he tore it free. She thought he was stripping her rank. She thought this was the end. She was wrong. He held the name tag up so every soldier in that courtyard could see it. His voice, when it came, was low, almost quiet. That was the worst kind, the quiet kind. "Private Vasquez," he said, "do you know what this is?" She answered the only way she knew how. "My name, sir." "No," he said, and the word landed like something heavy dropped from a great height. "This is a weight. Every soldier's name is a weight they carry, for themselves, and for every person standing beside them." He paused. The courtyard was stone still. A hawk circled somewhere far above, indifferent. 3 days ago, you carried Private Okafor's weight when he couldn't carry it himself. Webb's jaw tightened. You broke protocol. You also saved his life. He looked down at the name tag in his palm for a long moment, a man wrestling quietly with himself. And then he did something no one on that base had ever seen him do. He reached into his breast pocket and produced a new tag, identical in size, different in color, the burnished gold of a commendation rank Elena hadn't yet earned by time, only by courage. He pressed it into her hand himself. "Some rules," he said, just loud enough for the row nearest them to hear, "exist to protect people. Some people exist to remind us why we wrote the rules in the first place." The silence held for one more heartbeat. Then the courtyard erupted. Elena stood there, gold tag in her trembling palm, and she felt something she hadn't expected, not pride, but relief. The kind that floods in after you've held your breath so long your whole body forgot what air felt like. Around her, soldiers who had never spoken her name in warmth were clapping, and one or two were laughing. The bright, stunned laughter of people who've just witnessed something they'll describe for years. Marcus Okafor, recovered now, standing 3 rows back, caught her eye. He gave her one slow nod. She nodded back. Sergeant Webb had already turned away, walking toward the far end of the courtyard with his hands clasped behind his back. But before he disappeared through the gate, he paused, just for a moment, and tilted his head almost imperceptibly upward, as though listening to something only he could hear. Maybe it was the sound of an old conviction bending, not breaking. Maybe it was something else entirely. Because courage doesn't ask for permission. It moves, and in moving, it changes everything around it. And somewhere on a base baking under a summer sun, a young woman pinned a gold tag above her heart, right where her name had always been, and stood a little taller than she ever had before. If this story moved you, Drop a comment below, tell me where you're watching from, and share one moment when you chose people over protocol. Those are the stories worth telling. Like this video if you believe real courage looks like showing up for someone else. Subscribe and hit the bell, because every week, I bring you stories like this one. Stories of quiet bravery, unexpected grace, and the moments that remind us what it means to be human. The next story is already waiting. Don't miss it.